Welcome to the podcast, Her.
Thank you, Vivek.
So, why don't you tell us something that has not been widely published about you?
I started my first company back in 2010.
Being an entrepreneur was not fashionable.
Yeah,
back then.
it was not fashionable.
What motivated you to come back to India and build?
It just occurred that अगर कुछ build करना है तो अपने देश के लिए करना है. I think for me the path started from there.
If you put it on Excel sheet, US would always appear to be a far more lucrative opportunity.
यार वो डालनी नहीं Excel sheet में. हमारी Excel sheet हिंदुस्तान शुरू होती है.
So let's talk about the inception story of Pristyn. Was it a white space that you identified? Did you draw inspiration from somewhere? How did this idea come to your mind?
We have done over like 300,000 surgeries. We have our own doctors. So we have 300 plus surgeons, only surgeons. We have like 150 odd clinics in about 25 cities in the country. The same doctor goes to the hospital. We rent out their operation theatre and room and the nursing staff, and we do the surgery there.
Even now, hospitals would love you, right? Because even the best of the hospitals, Medanta, Narayana, Fortis, none of them are running at more than 65% occupancy.
Some of the large public hospital companies, they run at 60-70%. The average hospital runs at 20% capacity.
Wow. And what I really liked about this long journey is that in the initial days, the obsession of driving the patients down yourself. It's very relatable. Actually, I was reading Airbnb guys. So the founder made a very interesting statement that in order to scale, in the initial days, you have to do things which are not scalable.
Absolutely.
So in the initial days, Airbnb founders used to go and knock on every door of their hosts after every booking and used to take feedback themselves.
They struggle at stuffing, something I think Emversity is solving, and I think Emversity probably will do a great job, and I'm sure you like the way I made that plug.
Tell us about BeatXP.
BeatXP.
Tell us when it is becoming a unicorn within a unicorn.
Right through the wave of COVID, there has not been a single day when I was at home. Throughout the wave of COVID, I was in office like 6 days a week. और पुलिस के डंडे भी खाए हैं, रोज पुलिस ऑफिस भी आती थी, और हमारा ऑफिस भी ऑफिस रीजन में था, तो वहाँ पे पुलिस आती थी कि आप ऑफिस खोल कैसे बैठे हो. फिर उनको समझाना पड़ता था हेल्थ केयर है. फिर वेव 2 खत्म हो गई और एक मिनी थर्ड वेव आई जब सबको पीपी किट्स और ये सब चाहिए थे. फिर हमने वो बनाने शुरू कर दिए. So I think we ended up starting BeatXP in September of 21 or late September 21, and we did like 400 crores of revenue in our second year.
Hi viewers, I'm Vivek Sinha, the founder and CEO of Emversity, and I welcome you all to this healthcare focused podcast series, The Prognosis. So the idea behind launching this podcast was to help create next generation of leaders for the healthcare industry. And we thought, what could be a better way to do this than let leaders of today groom leaders of tomorrow? So in each episode in the podcast, we'll be talking to a top CEO or an entrepreneur from the healthcare industry. So if you are an industry professional or a clinician or an entrepreneur building for the healthcare industry, then this podcast is for you. This podcast is brought to you by the Emversity team. We are a training and recruitment platform for the healthcare industry. We do two things in service of our mission, which is to address the global shortage of doctors, nurses, and allied healthcare workers. First, we run work-integrated degrees and diploma programs, which are curated along with the top healthcare companies and NACA plus universities. And second, we also run an online jobs marketplace called Resume with an RX. Now, Resume is a portal which is a 10 times smarter way of getting hired by a top healthcare company in India. All right, let's dive right in. Welcome to the podcast, Harsh.
Thank you, Vivek.
So Harsh, a lot has been written about you. We have heard you on channels. We have read about your company. So why don't you tell us something that has not been widely published about you, something that we generally don't get to know about you in publication?
Yeah, I think widely written thoda sa overstatement hai. Unfortunately, we are healthcare entrepreneurs, and healthcare, while healthcare, you'll be surprised, we have like 4.7 million jobs, right? हम हर साल, I think healthcare as an industry 300,000 से 500,000 jobs add करते हैं. So we are a very core sector of the economy. Lekin I think people like to hear more about AI and EdTech and some of those things. So healthcare entrepreneurs के बारे में ज़्यादा लोग सुनना पसंद नहीं करते. Also, I think we come from a healthcare is such a serious job, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're working around people and their lives. So I think glad that we are doing this today. So thank you for having me. I think most people, we talk about so many different things, and somebody asked me a question the other day: why are you doing this? Why are you an entrepreneur? Did you plan it? Did you think, अच्छा यार अब देश grow कर रहा है, startup industry बन रही है, VC पैसा डालते हैं, so wealth creation job से नहीं हो रहा तो यहाँ से ज़्यादा होएगा. It's nothing like that, right? I started my first company back in 2010. Jabi, I think Sequoia, now Peak 15, of course, who are also our investors. Matrix, Lightspeed, they were startups themselves in the country, and hardly kisi ko fundraise milta tha. Zomato started in 2008.
And being an entrepreneur was not fashionable.
Yeah,
back then.
it was not fashionable. In fact, I think my story actually goes to almost like. So I was in US. I got very lucky at a very young stage. I got a chance to be at Duke in US. A phenomenal place. It just changed my life. I think इतना मेरे लिए इतना reverse train है ना. I when I was in India and said okay यार बाहर जाके पढ़ाई करेंगे, दुनिया देखेंगे, कुछ सीखेंगे. वहाँ जाते ही वहाँ पहुँचते ही and spending few years there, I think the notion of why is America supposed to build all the technology, all the startups, all the wealth, it was almost like an internal rebellion and a chip on the shoulder. Why are we not doing this in India? Wow. So I was in 2010. I was in California. I had interned with the investment bank, and being a turbaned, 6 foot, bearded, brown Sikh was not the ideal 6'3" male white investment banker. So it was very hard for me to get a job, but luckily I got one, and I was interning with them. And they offered me a full-time position, and there was this 2-month interim. Us 2 mahine mein I did some work with IIM Ahmedabad, and I think in that 2 months, it just felt like, yeah, this is not the place. We have to go back to India and build it. So I left a $100,000 job. I was 22. And from 22 to literally 28, I earned some total of 0. Wow. Failed 3 companies.
Wow.
Like nothing worked out. And then I joined Urban Company. So for me, I think entrepreneurship is not, it's not a choice.
3 companies before Pristyn and BeatXP.
Yeah, 3 companies. So I started my first company in 2010. It was in... it was a crazy things, right? In fact, actually, usse pehle 2010 में क्या हुआ कि so in California there was this huge thing around this new age cars. तो तब ना इलेक्ट्रिक कार्स टेस्ला बन रही थी अभी, बट बहुत सारी इलेक्ट्रिक कार्स को ना स्क्रैप करे जा रहे थे वो लोग. सो आई डोंट नो हाउ मेनी पीपल नो इट. GM एंड सम ऑफ दीज लार्ज अमेरिकन कार मेकर्स, दे मेड द फर्स्ट इलेक्ट्रिक कार्स एंड नॉट टेस्ला. सो दे मेड इट, दे गॉट देम लाइव, दे वर ऑन द रोड्स रनिंग, एंड वी कुड सी देम, एंड सडनली आई थिंक द OPEC and the oil industry and everything, I think, got in. So they actually took the cars back and scrapped them in junkyards. And I think in 2010 I was very motivated to start a हाइड्रोजन कार. तो मतलब सब H2O को तोड़ेंगे, H2O2 बनाएंगे और हाइड्रोजन से गाड़ी चलाएंगे. That was my first entrepreneurial idea. Wow. And went nowhere. But I think that research led to fuel cell and fuel cell as a technology. और 1960 से fuel cell चल रहा है हमारा. वो जो कैथोड एनोड वाला कनेक्शन है, वो 1960 में स्कूल में पढ़ाते थे हमें. तो वो कनेक्शन चल रहा है. सो इस थॉट के फ्यूल सेल बनाएंगे. उससे फिर हमने सिलिकॉन से सोचा कि यार मिट्टी से फ्यूल सेल बनाएंगे, SOFC बनाएंगे. वहाँ से समझ में आया कि हिंदुस्तान में फ्यूल सेल तो ठीक है, बिजली की चोरी बहुत ज़्यादा है. एंड वी सेड यार इंडिया हैज़ like $25 billion of electricity theft. Like it's crazy. I come from Punjab, and Punjab has like 2,000-3,000 crores of theft. AT&C losses अलग हैं, जो हमारे ट्रांसमिशन लॉसेज होते हैं, बट इतना थेफ्ट है. तो गुड थिंग वॉज इन 2009-10 द मीटर्स were starting to get digitized. So आपके पास डेटा आ सकता था. और हमने थोड़ा फाइनेंस पढ़ा था क्लास में. सो आई स्पोक टू सम ऑफ माय फ्रेंड्स एंड टुक सम एडवाइस, एंड थोड़ा इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंक में इंटर्न किया था, तो थोड़ा एक्सेस था. सो वेंट एंड आस्क्ड सम ऑफ दीस फोक्स कि आप इतना सारा डेटा आप कैसे समझते हो. सो इन 2010 they were using neural networks and data analytics and big data and Hadoop and some of these technologies. So we said, why can't we apply the same to electricity theft detection? So my first company in 2010 was called Hydrogen Power, from hydrogen power. So we named it on the idea we had. We never were able to start it, but ended up doing electricity theft detection, ran for 2 years, worked with some of the largest electricity discoms in the country. It went nowhere. हमने बिजली की चोरी हमें लगता है बहुत पकड़ी, लेकिन वो कभी प्रूव ही नहीं हुई. So it was one of those moments. So
it's about 30%, right? If I'm not wrong. If 100 units of electricity is produced, about 30%.
Yeah, it has come down. So 30% is mostly losses. तो उसमें एक तो AT&C losses हैं, क्योंकि आपको the electricity gets transferred, and then there is theft. So but 30% I think is the overall figure. It has changed now. With smart meters, things have changed.
Got it.
I think this slightly dated figure with smart meters because of difficult, and Tata, our NDPL, very surprisingly are leaders. Tata, as we all know, Tata is one of the most advanced discom meters usage in the world. So you're like the 7th best in the world, and I think 2nd in Asia. So abhi India, of course, I think is a very progressive nation. So, but that was my first startup. Okay. It went nowhere. It failed. I started my second company in 2012 late. So तब पेटीएम था नहीं, तो हम लोग ने सोचा कि QR कोड से हम डिस्काउंट देंगे. So he said mobile apps were coming through and I had just got hold my first smartphone and we said website नहीं, हम ऐप बनाएंगे और QR कोड के थ्रू स्कैन करेंगे और लोगों को ऑफर दिखाएंगे और वहीं से पेमेंट जनरेट करेंगे. I don't think we were early, but I think massive execution failure. We started in one city, scaled up to 4 cities. But again, I think that failed again. And then started a third company, which was very similar to what Swiggy does. So Swiggy started in Bangalore in 2014. We started in Delhi's Lajpat Nagar.
Food delivery.
Food delivery, exactly. So the DoorDash company थी US में. So I think वो suddenly Postmates or DoorDash I think had started doing really well. Swiggy got started, we got started. There were I think 30 companies which got started, so nothing really extraordinary about it. Swiggy raised $10 million, we raised $30,000. Swiggy became Swiggy, we folded up. So that was my third company. So all three went nowhere and then I joined Urban Company. So so for me, entrepreneurship is not a decision. It's not very different from why I like aloo ka paratha more than, let's say, a sambar. It's just, I can't explain.
That's very Punjabi way of explaining.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can reflect it more. So I think it just comes too naturally to me. It just drives me. And I think there is also that, I come from an area where I've seen so many people going to the battlefield to just fight for the country, and North has also was a huge part of the freedom movement. So there is always that concept of doing something for the country, in one form or the other. और जब हम लोग देखते हैं कि यार 1990 में चाइना और इंडिया की इकोनॉमी तो सेम थी. आई थिंक वी वर लाइक व्हाट अबाउट आई एम नॉट श्योर व्हाट दे फिगर, बट आई थिंक इट वाज लाइक $200-300 billion or something. Today China is like 17 trillion, we are like 4 trillion. So while we are proud to be fourth, but why aren't we 17 trillion? So let's do that. It takes 20 years. So hopefully by 2040 we'll be a developed nation. And I think entrepreneurs like yourself, like us, and with a very progressive government behind it, I think we have a great chance to do well. So कुछ build करते हैं हिंदुस्तान की.
Amazing. Yeah, because you were already in US, you understood the market, you had connections, you were doing iBanking. Typically, I hear a lot of entrepreneurs saying that US is a much better market to build. एक तो because of the margins, because of the massive TAM, because of the access to capital, because of the whole ecosystem, especially if you're a venture funded company, तो valley में पूरा ecosystem है.
Correct.
Healthcare, if we take an example, $5 trillion market size US, and India is only a fraction of it.
300 billion.
Yeah, exactly, $300-400 billion. Because you were already there. Let's say for somebody like me to go and actually crack US, it's a very daunting thing, right? Because you have no networks, no understanding, but you were already there. What motivated you to come back to India and build?
Yeah, I think like I explained, it just occurred that अगर कुछ build करना है तो अपने देश के लिए करना है. So there is that definite chip on the shoulder कि why are for me, I think for me the moment, and I just remember it so vividly. So I was during my orientation at Duke, we had these couple of guys who had come from Facebook, and this is like 2007-8. Facebook got started in 2004, I think. So 3-4 साल हुए थे तो ऑलरेडी इंडिया में फेसबुक लोग यूज़ नहीं करते, अभी ऑर्कुड यूज़ कर रहे थे तब. राइट, तो ऑर्कुड का टाइम था, तो फेसबुक हैड स्टार्टेड टेक ऑफ इन यूएस एंड इट वाज वेरी यूनिवर्सिटी थिंग दैट टाइम इन द फर्स्ट 2-3 years. So Duke was part of that. I think you had to I think have a like
university
EDU as an extension. And we had some Facebook folks come in. I think some senior leader, one of the co-founders also, I don't remember the person, and they came in like flip-flops. And you go from India, you go to a foreign country, you're like, oh, we have to dress well. And all the shopping you do is like, let's buy good jeans, good shirt, क्योंकि हम तो बाहर के देश में जाके पढ़ाई करेंगे, and वहाँ जाके everybody is wearing shorts and t-shirts and like sandals to college. It was like, oh, we've come to a different place. But the confidence they had and the ambition that young, probably 27, 28 years old had was phenomenal. It was just so inspiring. But I think they kept talking about how the opportunity in US was there, how the support in US was there, how the venture capital in US was there. It was very American thing.
Yeah.
और हम वहाँ बैठ के सोच रहे हैं कि यार इंडिया में क्यों नहीं हो सकता है? Why do we have to just be here? So I think for me it never really occurred to say कि let's start a company in US. It was always from that inspiration that why can't it be done back home? And I think for me the path started from there. So it was not कि मुझे startup करना है. What is the best place? US might be the best place. You know, my family is there. My real sister lives there. I also happen to visit a few times. But somehow the path started from saying, yeah, this is the best ways to build a country. You know, of course, there are a lot of ways to serve your country, and you know, army personnel's being on the border is one of the, I think, premier, hats off to them. Being a politician is a great way to serve your country. You can have such a massive impact. But I think entrepreneurs build companies.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it is partly an ambition of doing something for India, and partly an ambition which is just so personally motivating, which is very hard to explain to you. So it starts from there.
Yeah. If you put it on Excel sheet, US would always appear to be a far more lucrative opportunity.
यार वो डाली नहीं एक्सेल शीट में. हमारी एक्सेल शीट हिंदुस्तान शुरू होती है. तो हिंदुस्तान की अपॉर्चुनिटी है, हिंदुस्तान शुरू होती है. And I think there is that you know, little inspiration. Like I said, right? I was reading about this. How China became like a super world power. So if you actually look at their history of right from 1980s to 1990, when there was a change in the leadership, China has been fairly smart, right? Initially उन्होंने क्या किया? उन्होंने सीधा चीज़ बोला कि यार हमारा देश unskilled है, पढ़े लिखे लोग नहीं है, पर लोग बहुत ज़्यादा हैं. So what can we do? You know, we should put them to work, but where can they be put to work where the skill is least needed and you can use human like element, like physical element. So they put all of them into agriculture. तो पहले उन्होंने agriculture economy बनाई, वहाँ से थोड़ा पैसा कमाया, वहाँ पे थोड़ा, you know, you saw a few people making money, and then they said, okay, now can we put them to semi-skilled work. So agriculture में they started doing cotton. I come from my dad and everybody's in textile, so I've had that little exposure. So they started doing cotton. So cotton became like their biggest export. तो कॉटन से उन्होंने पैसा कमाना शुरू कर दिया. बाद में लगा कॉटन से ज़्यादा तो कपड़े की वैल्यू है, तो कपड़ा बना के बेचते हैं. सो दे स्टार्टेड डूइंग टेक्सटाइल मिल्स. सो टेक्सटाइल मिल में स्किल थोड़ी सी अपग्रेड हो गई, तो टेक्सटाइल मिल्स में उन्होंने डालना शुरू कर दिया. अब टेक्सटाइल मिल में जब पैसा आने लग गया, उन्होंने कहा यार अब ये चीज़ बड़ा अच्छा है यार, टेक्सटाइल से पैसा आ रहा है, एंड वी आर एबल टू प्रोड्यूस चीप. You know, how would we export it to the world? And they start becoming the factory, you know, manufacturing hub of the world. And from that, I think the government, if you look at, we were doing our own unlocking of the license Raj in 1990s, and when Indian economy started to take off, they were doing their own unlocking, and they went to something very interesting, by the way. They went to these rural areas and they started putting, they started forcing 2 or 3 things. If you and I'm sorry if I'm boring you, but it's like, it's so interesting, you know, they forced people to study till 9-10 years. This is 10 साल तो पढ़ाई करना ही आपको, और उस पढ़ाई में technical and some skill education was mandatory. So not just learning Chinese and Mandarin, but some skill, something which is of skill. And that skill started to, and if today we see Chinese are referred one of the best technical minds in the world, I think it started in probably 1980s. So it's been a 30-year, 20-year journey. When they were forced to undergo some level of technical education, वहाँ से. And then of course, you know, they had all these electronic market. US में tech boom हो गया, उनके पास लोग हैं नहीं काम करने के लिए ज़्यादा. तो ये South Korea और Japanese company को Panasonic, LGs of the world needed factories, so they put them into China. चाइना में फैक्ट्री बनने लग गई, वहाँ पे टेक्नोलॉजी आ गई, तो स्मार्ट लोग तो वहाँ भी बैठे हैं. अब हिंदुस्तान में एप्पल आया है, तो you're going to see a similar moment. Apple is starting producing in India. Some smart folks are going to work there, find great ideas, learn their technology, and start innovative companies. And that's going to happen in India too. Yeah. So I think it's the journey of 20 years. And you know, Vivek, I'll also tell you something completely off the topic. We are 30-year-olds, mid-30s, right? जिस generation की उम्र आज 20-22 साल है, and who are between, let's say, 40, we are going to be between 40 and 60 in the next 20 years. We have a chance of a lifetime to build a nation into developed nation. और ये centuries में एक आध generation को मिलता है. चाइना की पिछली generation को मिला, तब तो aging population है. US की probably, and Europe maybe few decades. We have the chance, and so somewhere I think वो Excel sheet पे US को भी पहुंचा ही नहीं.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a smart thing, but maybe too driven.
No, I think especially if you are building in healthcare, I think India is the place to build for the next 2 or 3 decades, because healthcare mein the biggest raw material I think is people. It's a very people-serving people kind of a business.
Correct.
So if you are in a sector where the raw material is people, then what could be a better geography than India, where the median age is 25?
Yeah.
The largest youth population, I think, if I'm not wrong, the youth population is higher than the population of Russia and Canada.
मतलब हम लोग क्या 150 करोड़ लोग हैं और यार 1.5 billion, 40% of them are young, and that's like, you know, almost like 600 million people. That is 2 times the size of US. Or double the size probably of Russia. I don't know the population, but probably 3 or 4 times Russia's population. 100%. We have our youth on our side, and we have to win.
Agreed. यार एक चीज़ बताओ, and this I can relate from my personal experience, because when I decided to start, healthcare also for me also was the obvious choice. But in the initial days, I was working on a different idea, where if I had pursued that idea, I would have gone in the territory of healthcare delivery. So nephrology was an idea which, as a space, looked very lucrative to me. At one point of time, I started getting jittery. मेरे हाथ पाँव फूलने लग गए, because when I realized that, hey, I'll be going into healthcare delivery now, and I am not a clinician, I am not a physician, मेरा कोई healthcare का background नहीं है. And that's when I actually thought I should do skilling. And I know you had co-founders who were doctors.
Who are doctors,
but फिर भी, not being from the healthcare background, building in healthcare can be very daunting for a entrepreneur, especially for young people. How did you also had similar experience in your early days?
Every day. And let me give you an example. On a typical weekend, like this is a weekend we are talking today. On a typical weekend, we have 600 patients on an average Saturday. 600 patients in 30 cities.
Wow.
In almost 100 plus hospitals, going inside an OT. 300 odd doctors, literally in as simplistic ways, sort of, using advanced technology to cut them open and sewing them back up and then discharging them. That's like 600 people undergoing anesthesia or some form of anesthesia every Saturday, and you're just hoping that there is nothing in the world which can go wrong, and it's mind-bogglingly hard. It's mind-bogglingly hard to live through that feeling of, sometimes thinking कि down south कोयम्बटोर में आपके कोई hospital में आपके कोई doctor कोई procedure कर रहे हैं या surgery कर रहे हैं, and there's a patient who might have had the troubled life and already has already signed a consent which says that there's a potential of a tough outcome. I remember my grandmom passed away a year and a half ago, and when she was in the hospital, she was 93, so she, God bless her, she led a very good life. But my dad signed a consent for her when she was going for a little procedure, right? And I know those things. And we have like 600 people every day doing that. And, even though everybody knows that, but like that's an outcome, even if you know it, like it scares out. I remember we have done over like 300,000 surgeries. And luckily, we've been fairly lucky, and we've put in a lot of processes. We've had like maybe less than 10 odd cases where the outcomes have been not favorable. But the first time it happened for me, I haven't, and I've not told this to anyone. The shoes I was wearing was a new shoes, and I bought it that day. I have not touched that shoes ever. They're lying in my somewhere in the house. I have not been able to touch those shoes. That's how scary it was for me for the first time, coming from like you said, coming from more of a, very technology, internet background, that there are human lives at stake. So it's extremely, extremely hard. But I think for me, I got slightly lucky. I know both my co-founders for a very long time, and Vaibhav is a friend of mine from.
They're school buddies.
He's school buddies. We went to low kindergarten together. So I know him for like, I'm literally late 30s. I know him from 35 years. So we've spent life together. And we know Garima for 15-20 years. So when I was in Gurgaon, even before Pristyn, and I'm not even married that time, literally that was my family. So I used to hang out in Max Gurgaon. They were functioning. They hang out as in, whenever I had to meet them and they had little time off, I would go there and, meet them, do a coffee in their coffee house. So I had started to get used to being a hospital. Then I met my wife in 2016, and Pristyn started late 2018, early 2019. So her father is a doctor, mother is a doctor, her sister is a doctor, she's a doctor, everybody in her family is a doctor. So I think I started getting exposure to healthcare very, very early, before Pristyn, early by maybe context. So I think I started to get sense of what it takes, but you can never like live that feeling before you live it. So yeah, it's jittery, it's hard, it's not easy.
Interesting. So let's talk about the inception story of Pristyn. Uh, as far as I know, I see this as a wide space. I don't see a lot of such examples of what Pristyn is doing. I don't see many such examples elsewhere.
Yeah.
So was it a white space that you identified where did you drew inspiration from somewhere? How did this idea come to your mind?
Yeah. So, we are lucky enough that every investor we've met in the last 5 years has always come to ask us the first question: is there like an idea that in the world? And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because
yeah.
if there's in the world, then they know where to look for,
Yeah.
and it's easy to understand. But if it's not there, it's also original. So I think we had now companies out of Brazil, South Africa, one in Argentina, Indonesia, who have reached out to us that, hey, we are trying to build something similar. Can you help? Can you share knowledge? Can you invest? So that there's more exchange of words. So clearly like that. So I'll tell you, my previous 3 startups, I went slightly methodically. ये इंडस्ट्री में प्रॉब्लम है, ये सबसे बड़ा मार्केट है, ये टैम है, ये करंट स्टेज है, ये प्रॉब्लम को हम सॉल्व करेंगे नए तरीके से, so here is the opportunity. And all 3 ended up that's conventionally right way, but maybe it just didn't work it for me. Maybe not the best executions. I think for Pristyn, what happened was, if you actually think about Pristyn, and if when I'll paint you the picture of traditional healthcare, you'll realize that the idea already exists. So we are, if we talk about Pristyn, we are into surgeries. So we do surgeries, right? And the way we function is that we have our own doctors. So we have 300 plus surgeons, only surgeons. So we have no other category of doctors, only surgeons, fully qualified, MBBS, MS, MD, DM, so super specialist, 20 odd years of experience, having done 8,000-10,000 surgeries even before they joined Pristyn. So only surgeons. We have our own clinics. We have like 150 odd clinics in about 25 cities in the country. We have our own patients who come and meet these doctors in the clinics. Physical examinations happen, and if we need a surgery, if the patient needs a surgery, we partner with the hospital. The same doctor goes to the hospital. We rent out their operation theater and room and nursing staff, and we do the surgery there. So it's our patient, our doctor. We carry our own medical equipment because every surgery in Pristyn is the most advanced in India, if not the world. So we have a huge supply chain throughout the 25 cities we are in, where mobile equipment, advanced equipment goes inside the surgery, comes out. And we've trained our doctors on it. And that's a huge part which maybe somebody like yourself should look at. And then we do a lot of insurance processing. Because we started building Pristyn, we realized patient की journey में बहुत सारे gaps हैं, and one of the biggest was insurance and claim processing. It's almost like 3-4 hours to get admission in a hospital when you have an insurance policy. At Pristyn, that number is 28 minutes for 85% of our patients.
Wow.
The discharge takes like 8 hours for a cashless treatment. For us, that's 2.5 hours, and we track it by the minute. Like that's a North Star metrics for a patient experience team, that how fast we can get the patient admitted and how fast we can get the patient discharged. क्योंकि patient की surgery तो doctor की skill, OT की equipments और उस सब पे अच्छा हो जाता है, और patient को ज़्यादा पता भी नहीं लगता because they are like sedated, so they are all right. They are in pain. The biggest problem is the admission and discharge, especially discharge, because you just had a procedure done, right? So is a discharge. But if you now think about a model, what we do, we have our own doctor, we have our own clinic, and we rent somebody's hospital and we go and operate there. Now, if you look at traditional healthcare, so one, there is government. Outside the government, 15% of the patients get surgeries done through large corporate hospitals.
Yeah.
80-85% patients go and meet the doctors who either have their own clinics or they work in smaller hospitals, and they take their patient to a friend's or a brother's or a husband's hospital and they do the surgery. So this functionality of a visiting surgeon exists in traditional India for 30 odd years. Pristyn is a very, very large sort of institution built on that idea. So it's something which exists in a traditional format. We just found an efficient way of building technology around it. and we've scaled it to a very large
interesting.
degree.
So you do the acquisition, you do counseling, you do insurance process management. The surgeon is yours. Post-operative care, everything is yours.
So
Just the infra is not yours.
Yeah, just the infra is not ours. In fact, an average patient interaction with Prisytn, and we talk to 30,000 surgery patients a day. 30,000.
Wow.
Of course, a very few of them get operated, but a patient's interaction from us lasts anywhere between 30 days to 60 days.
So the end-to-end journey is completely in your control, minus the headache of owning the capex on your balance sheet.
Minus the capex, but because capex and the experience inside the hospital is so important, we work very deeply with them.
So standardize, okay. So
SOPs, protocols, selection of those hospitals, having care buddies inside the hospitals, working around admission, discharge. Very simple thing. We come from technology, and my background is, entrepreneurship. So a very, very simple thing. When a doctor post surgeries has to write a discharge summary, OT notes. Now, an OT notes can, because most doctors, come out, they have to either rush to the clinic or they have to go for another surgery. So they can be time constrained, and you have to write a detailed OT notes, because that's what is, it's like almost capturing what you've done inside. It's not just medical protocol. It's extremely important for the patient and its future. Now, that little OT notes is handwritten in 99% places, probably 100%.
Okay.
We have digitized that process. So because of our data analytics and pattern analysis, we have made formats where, because at the end of the day, the surgery type is similar. It's only patient body type which changes, where there's so many commonalities. So we made a format which is extremely digitized with little drag and drop and minute changes. Doctor can write the OT notes in less than 10% of the time which they were doing it.
Oh, wow.
So we've digitized that little process because it's a prompt for the doctor.
So if I'm a hospital owner, I have to meet a certain bar in order to get onboarded with Pristyn.
So luckily healthcare is regulated. For us to onboard a hospital, there are 3 or 4 things which are very critical. It has to be NABH accredited, because for it's the compliance.
Correct.
Also, it ensures the quality of operation theater, quality of nursing staff, quality of having RMO, quality of licenses. As simple as is the lift equipped to take a stretcher or a wheelchair?
Sure.
You'll be surprised. There are 70,000 hospitals in the country. 32,000 are fit for a surgery, of which only 10 to 15% will have a lift where a patient can be taken on a stretcher.
Oh, wow.
Otherwise, the patient has to be, even if it's sedated, has to be put on a wheelchair because the lift is not long enough.
Not bad for the
Right. So having an NABH and having some of these government accreditations checked ensures like automatic fix for us. Then we focus a lot of effort on the infrastructure because like I said, at the end of the day, patient has 3 things which matter to them: the doctor, the experience of admission, discharge, and that one day stay inside the hospital. So if the infrastructure, the walls are damp, the sheets are dirty, nursing staff doesn't listen to them, a patient in pain, it could be the most horrific time for you. And I think just to ensure some of these things is like crazy hard. And then we do a lot of things. We pick the patients from home. When there's a story behind it. When we were very early in our journey and we were operating out of Gurgaon, we had this 10 by 10 ka clinic. तो उसमें ना 10 by 10 का एक clinic था. There was like a co-working space for doctors.
Sure.
So we had rented this little clinic where this was our office and this was our clinic as well. So we had Vaibhav and Garima, my co-founders, who are surgeons themselves. That's the only 2 doctors he had, and I was like the care coordinator. 3 founders just doing everything full time. So we would work inside the clinic, and when a patient would come, we will all go out, right? And the doctor, अगर वो Vaibhav के लिए आया तो Vaibhav would sit in. If Garima के लिए आया, Garima would meet the patient. That's all. Like, we had no other money to do anything. So that we were there, and very, very early we had one of these patients, and we were operating in Gurgaon. We had one of these patients come from Noida, I think, and the son was abroad. And the elderly couple the uncle had to get had a procedure done. On the morning of the procedure, we got a call from his son that he cannot come in because he's having cold feet. Now, we were a very, very young institution, and for us, there was like 1 surgery in 3 days. So we were like, how will we even pay the bills next month? And like, why is the patient not coming? They didn't like us? What happened? So I think coming from a very internet kind of background, we said, let's talk to the patient, take their feedback. Why did they refuse? When we spoke to the patient, they said, आज सर्जरी का दिन है, मैं ना गाड़ी नहीं चला सकता और नोएडा से गुड़गांव आने में 1-1.5 घंटा लगेगा, तो मेरे को ना वो कोल्ड फीट हो रहा है, इट्स हार्ड फॉर मी टू ड्राइव एंड आई डोंट हैव एनी फैमिली हियर, सो मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा मैं कैसे करूँ. एंड सो वी सेड ओके, कैन वी ड्राइव यू टू गुड़गांव? He said, yeah, why not? That works. So we actually drove that patient from home to the hospital, uh, just because उनको दिक्कत हो रहा था. And I realized that with myself when I was, वैसे बड़े शेर बनते हैं, लेकिन my mom had to undergo a procedure and 7 a.m. in the morning I was driving her to the hospital and I had like, oh my God, I was sweating. Especially being in healthcare now, you know that there is that 0.01% chance of something going wrong. So it's hard. So since that day, every patient in Pristyn, whenever they have to come for a surgery, we pick them from home and we drop them back home. So हमको घर से लेके आते हैं, फिर उनका एडमिशन हम खुद करते हैं. इसमें भी हम टेक्नोलॉजी पे काम करते हैं. आप टिपिकल हॉस्पिटल में जाओगे तो आपको बहुत सारा पेपर वर्क, डॉक्यूमेंट वर्क करना होता है. तो हमारे को, क्योंकि वी आर डिजिटल, सो वी डू KYC, वी डू डिजिटल कॉन्सेंट्स, वी डू डिजिटल पेमेंट्स एंड एवरीथिंग ऑनलाइन इवन बिफोर द पेशेंट हैज रीच्ड द हॉस्पिटल. उसकी वजह से वी आर एबल टू कट डाउन आवर एडमिशन टाइम. Then we do a very effective scheduling of the doctor. और डॉक्टर के लिए हमने वो ट्रैवल टाइम से लेके हॉस्पिटल से क्लिनिक का लोकेशंस मैप कर रखी हैं ताकि हम ऑप्टिमाइज कर सकें कि डॉक्टर हॉस्पिटल लेट नहीं पहुंचे. सो वी आर एबल टू स्पेस आउट देयर कंसल्ट्स और OPDs और देयर सर्जरीज, राइट. सो वो भी हमने
And doctors are exclusive. They are on your payroll.
They're exclusive to us.
Okay.
And you need to do that. While there are some areas where we partner with some amazing doctors, that could be a new city, speciality which we are very young in, or we are testing it out. So a place like, but most doctors are absolutely unique to us. So we do all the patient admission work ourselves. Then we have an OT booking capacity planning like a hotel, so we know how many OTs are available, how many rooms are available in a hospital, so that we are never overstaffed or understaffed. Staffed. I'm saying we are never we are not over capacitated. कि ऐसा ना हो कि हम patient hospital पहुंच जाएं, कमरा नहीं है, wait करना पड़ रहा है, खाली नहीं हो रहा है. So to avoid those things, then we do entire insurance processing, and we've done some amazing work there. So today, if you go to hospital and you submit your insurance document, it takes 24 hours for them to tell you that your insurance will cover this disease in this hospital at this price point, and this is what you have to pay extra. We can do that in less than 30 seconds.
Wow.
We have mapped all this data, we've put all the analysis, and we've been doing this for 5 years now. वो OCR से लेके AI से लेके हमने सब टेक लगा दिया है. So हम 30 seconds में बताते हैं कि इस हॉस्पिटल में आपका ये सर्जरी कितना कवर है, and if you had to pay out of the pocket, what will it be?
Wow.
Right? So we do that. So we do the insurance processing. Then we work with insurance companies directly. There's a lot of work which is going on in that industry, and a lot more should happen. I think they have fallen slightly behind on technology, but I think some of the newer age ones are catching up really fast, and we also work with them very closely. So वहाँ पे जो approval process होता है वो थोड़ा manual है, तो हम उसको fast करने के लिए ensure करते हैं. Our entire documentation is now proper. It's like a passport, right? When you go for a passport application, you can either do a great job, put everything in sequence, put every information correctly so that the checker doesn't miss it. Similarly, when we do an insurance file, there is a entire technology or a process which is you have to digitally check that there is no mistake, there's no prescription error, there's no document missing, there is no if there's an implant, so implant bill and ABCD things, so the insurance processing doesn't get delayed. So, and when the final insurance process happens, that communication doesn't get delayed because a lot of that communication happens over the email, and we have built systems on top of it so that we can read those emails and read those processes. So then we discharge the patient, then we drop them back home, then we follow it up with them for the next 30 odd days to check if they're doing okay. So it's a long journey for us.
Wow.
But that's what we do.
And what I really liked about this long journey is that in the initial days, the obsession of driving the patients down yourself, it's very relatable. Actually, I was reading about the Airbnb guys.
Yeah.
So the founder made a very interesting statement that in order to scale, in the initial days, you have to do things which are not scalable.
Absolutely.
So in the initial days, Airbnb founders used to go and knock on every door of their hosts after every booking and used to take feedback themselves.
If on the Airbnb thing, if you listen to some of Brian Chesky's notes, he'll tell you that initially Airbnb listed a lot of properties and they were not taking off. Then they ended up realizing there was this little cohort of probably few percentage properties which start to do well, and these guys were in California and the properties were in New York. So they went to those homes and they started talking to the owner and said, why are you getting all the guests? Nobody else gets the guest. And they started realizing the reason they were getting the guests was because they had clicked the most beautiful pictures of their home. And now if all of us have started to become so synonymous with Airbnb, we don't even realize that how beautiful the pictures are taken. And that little insight came out because the founders
were on the ground,
went to the ground. And similarly in our case, right? Initially, मतलब हमारे में तो डॉक्टर भी हम खुद ही है. मैं दोनों co-founder surgeons हैं, आज भी surgery करते हैं. So I was a care coordinator. We would get them to the hospital. We would stand in the admission line, क्योंकि तब तो कुछ पता ही नहीं था कैसे करते हैं. तो वहीं पता लगा कि admission line में मैंने तो fortunately for me, before Pristyn, I never had, or probably just once I had an experience of having a family member admitted to a hospital except my mom, right? And that was a huge motivation for me. But beyond that, I've never really experienced any healthcare challenges, luckily. So I think when we were doing Pristyn, everything was like, यार ये भी होता है, ये भी होता है, ये भी challenge है. Admission कराने में line में लगना पड़ता है, TPA desk पे time waste करना पड़ता है, फिर उसके बाद patient बैठे रहता है, फिर उसका cannula लगने के बाद पहले उसको blood test कराना पड़ता है, फिर room में जाते हैं, फिर cannula लगता है. Like there were so many hassles, and we would do everything ourselves between the three of us. Insurance claim भी हम खुद जाके TPA desk पे बैठ के insurance company से बात कर के, OT notes खुद लिख के, of course doctors ही लिखते हैं. Insurance की file खुद complete करता था. My co-founder Weber used to complete those files because as a doctor he understand the sort of the technical side so well कि हमारी insurance delay ना हो, क्योंकि patient next day morning, हमें तो लगता था surgery हो गई है. At 10 o'clock in the morning, after 2 days, Weber had seen the patient and he's saying patient is fit, he should go home. And patient goes home at 8 o'clock in the night. I was like, आपने तो 10 बजे बोला था और patient तो शाम को 8 बजे जा रहा है, तो ये 10 घंटे क्या है? I was like, 10 hours is that entire processing work. It's like, okay, why can't we start it a day in advance? And so I think those kind of things came in because we were on the ground ourselves.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a very interesting thing from my personal experience. So one of my cousin, he went through a hair transplant surgery with Pristyn actually. And I think it was through Pristyn or some of these asset-light hospital chain. And he didn't want to inform his mother or his wife because elective है तो कोई ऐसा life-threatening तो है नहीं. But if you tell your family, they'll freak out.
Yeah.
So the guy actually went and came back through the cab which the SADA folks had provided. So actually that's a core insight because it is elective, people may end up cancelling.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
Cancel नहीं करते. See, I'll tell you, and this has been a nuance in the industry which is very critical in healthcare. You have to understand surgery. We are doing surgery. We're not selling credit card. आप credit card और mobile phone last moment पे cancel कर सकते हो. When you and I've had a surgery on myself. I had my shoulder had dislocated and I got a surgery done. Like I can tell you, and my mom had underwent a couple of procedures in Pristyn. जब आप किसी पेशेंट का सर्जरी करते हो ना, वो एक हफ्ता पहले सोचना शुरू करता है कि मेरे को सैटरडे को सर्जरी करानी है. 2 दिन पहले नींद नहीं आती है that यार I'm going to go inside the OT. So majority people will undergo less than one surgery in their lifetime. And probably maybe one in their family, which they have not. So they don't know what it means to undergo procedure. Like it's like the first time you would have taken a flight, you don't know what to expect. And flight you're going to take again, but surgery you're hopefully never going to get done again, right? So you have no expectations, and the fear of unknown is so high. And then the fear of operation theater, fear of syringes, fear of anesthesia, fear of and it's an open society. We have open internet, so much access to knowledge. There is fear of just the utmost incident of the life.
Yeah, especially if you start researching on the internet, everything leads to
that. Even a hair transplant can have a 0.001%,
exactly,
which is no more than you going out on a traffic light, but it can happen.
It can happen
and gets highlighted. And so which is critical. So it scares you. So an average patient starts thinking literally a week in advance. Right? I remember, and I got my shoulder surgery done last year, and I'd been like part of so many procedures, so many hospital stays, unlimited patient conversations. 3 days before the surgery, I started thinking about it without realizing. I was like, what happens post-surgery? I'll not be able to tie my turban. What happens? I'll not be able to work on my laptop. What if the pain is so much that my hand never recovers fully to, play a sport? What if I'm never able to do weights? What if, it swells and, I have to come back? What if there's a wound which doesn't heal up? these things start to go through your mind. So a surgery patient doesn't necessarily cancel. They start planning in advance, and it is scary. It is the discomfort which they go through, which is what we're trying to avoid. When a patient undergoes a procedure and sometimes they decide to sidestep it, it's normally a very, very unavoidable thing. Some mishap in the family, something somebody fell really sick and he said, okay, somebody's got really sick, I'll do it next day or maybe next week. Or medically, your HB level goes down, or you have developed a flu, so you're not advised. So majority surgeries which get delayed, especially elective, or any surgery, of course, emergency don't get delayed. Elective is for very, very, unavoidable reasons, because you have to get into mindset of planning a surgery, and it is real fear. It is the same thing as, when somebody gets married, you don't decide on the day before the wedding that you're not going to get married, right? Surgery can be as paranoid. So it's more like the discomfort.
Yeah, what I found really interesting about your model is, and you guys have been able to successfully avoid the trap that most entrepreneur in healthcare fall into. Either people start building rollovers or aggregators, keep, let's say, doctors, yeah, diagnostic, rollover kar do existing infra. You are an online platform, is essentially search and discovery. So you do a shallow job. शुरू में traction आ जाता है because India market इतनी बड़ी है, healthcare इतना बड़ा है. But if you don't own the experience, it doesn't lead you anywhere.
Yeah.
या फिर दूसरा spectrum में क्या होता है? A lot of people start investing in infra. Then your precious capital gets tied.
Correct.
So I think you guys have been able to avoid both the traps. कि आपने पैसा नहीं फंसाया because एक 50 बेड हॉस्पिटल बनाने में 50 करोड़ रुपए लगते हैं. On the other hand, आपने ये नहीं बोला यार कि चलो मैं सर्जन्स को कनेक्ट करा देता हूँ, इनसे लीड बेच दो और वो काम कर लेंगे. Was this the model from day one, or you went through your iterations or your own share of learnings, mistake?
No, absolutely. I think the learnings were always, I think you learn everything new, right? Yeah. Even yesterday we had a new learning, right? So that doesn't stop. But I think for us, because I'd spent some time in the startup ecosystem and company building, journey building process. I think one thing was very, very clear. And my background, before Pristyn, the only success in my life I had professionally was building urban company. I was, lucky enough to join them very early, pre-revenue. The most amazing company I've ever had I just love those folks, Aviraj, Varun and Raghav, and literally owe my success to urban company and its work culture and what we were able to achieve there. So when we were building, and I was, of all things in my life, I was building salon, the beauty services. I remember Abhiraj telling me, कि हर्ष यार तू salon build कर दे. I was like, dude, look at me. I have never been to salon in my life. मेरे को पता ही नहीं threading waxing होता
है. Totally relatable.
ये मैं build कैसे करूँगा? मुझे क्या बोल रहे हो? मुझे यही नहीं पता कि salon दिखता कैसे है? इसे नहीं तेरे से तो plumber, electrician, carpenter कराएंगे. अभी कोई है नहीं करने वाला तो तू ही कर ले. And but I think luckily I started to get in, start to see a real problem, got a lot of support from the team, and just the first principle thinking, which is so prevalent in the company. So one of the things I learned very early there was, if you're not creating value for the end consumer, it doesn't work. So I think the framework was that. So, and I'll tell you, and it's so easy to think now. The framework was कि end consumer, जो भी हमारे case में patient है, urban company, it was we were doing largely, initially we were doing only for the females. What is the value? Let's just unlock this. So हमने जब salon की value की बात करी यार, हमने जब हम लोग, I remember I used to visit customers at their homes and I used to ask them about their threading and waxing and upper lip और वो wrong strokes और redness हो जाती थी और Rica wax, and I knew all these things. I could look at a girl and tell her आपने upper lip नहीं कराया. It's not a good thing to know, but it was part of my job. And when you used to visit these customers, they would tell you, okay, for me, having a salon professional coming home, only 3 things value. He or she should be super clean. Super clean. So hygiene आ गया. He or she rather that time, have to be super trained. Because I'm going to let that individual touch my body. So they have to be trained. And third, they have to use products because I can have a bad reaction. So we said, अच्छा यही तीनों insight है, तो पहले तो हम लोग किसी को aggregate करते थे. And one company started like that, aggregating top of the funnel. They said, अगर ये 3 चीजें control करनी है, तो aggregation हो ही नहीं सकती.
बिल्कुल.
So you have to control the beautician, you have to control her training, you have to control her background hygiene, and then you had to control, the services and the products she does. So there is no other way. If you don't have your, you don't have control, the experience will go away. One company and nothing else. Otherwise, what is the value of bringing a beautician at home? फिर तो अगर आप aggregator को भेज जाओगे, दूसरी तीसरी बार तो human being है, वो खुद से कर लेंगे. So I think that learning was very, very strong. So when we came to Pristyn, we said, what does really, really matter to the patient? The first things matter to the patient was the doctor has to be extremely, extremely, surgically very, very, very qualified. That was like, in fact, in terms of the outcome, that is like, there are only two things. One is the surgical skill of the doctor and the OT and equipment. Because if you're not equipped well, that's like 100%. But when we started talking to the customers, we said, what is your problem in the surgical journey? पहले तो एक तो बहुत सारे लोगों की surgery होती नहीं है.
Yeah.
And it's such a private thing, people don't want to talk about
Yeah,
it. But हम तो जी रहे थे surgery को रोज, देख रहे थे लोगों के साथ पूरा अस्पताल. So I think the things we learned was they were not, once you have a good doctor and a great OT, they were struggling through some of these aspects.
Yeah.
They were struggling through commute to the hospital. They were struggling through admission. They were struggling through discharge. They were struggling through insurance policies, claim processing, reimbursement filing, post-surgery doctor follow-up. So they were struggling through all these things. So हमने कहा यार हमारे लिए 3 या 4 tenets है. पेशेंट की जर्नी तो हमें ओन करनी पड़ेगी अगर एनपीएस चाहिए, वरना पेशेंट कभी वापस नहीं आएगा. हमारे केस में पेशेंट वापस आता नहीं है, रिफर करता है. Hopefully a patient should never be cross category के लिए आ सकता है, but like I said, most people will undergo less than 1 surgery in their lifetime, so hopefully दोबारा नहीं आएंगे. So they have to refer to us. The only way for that to happen, they need to have a great experience, which is safe, which is doctor and OT, but then it is comfortable. And surgical journey, if you're going to undertake only once in a lifetime, तो ambiguity इतनी ज़्यादा है कि कुछ चीज़ का पता ही नहीं है. आप आज सोचो डॉक्टर खोजने में समझ नहीं आता. Like if I go on the internet or I ask 10 people which doctor to meet, will say okay मेरे चाचा ने बोला okay let me go there, और किसी profile इनका अच्छा था. Okay, I've met 2 doctors, both very experienced, both very high quality, both had great institutions, both recommended different surgery. My mom had a varicose vein and we met 2 surgeons, and one of them said there is a flap procedure and the other one said we're going to do it through, a laser procedure. Both of them explained the benefits of the procedures, and I was like, how do I even decide? Like, I'm in the industry. I have access to so many doctors.
Achha, this was after Pristyn.
This is after Pristyn being like, I was like, and both of them are doctors. I was like, how do I decide? That's the journey of an average individual. We have access. How do you decide? Right? And then you have to choose a doctor. Then you have to choose the surgery. Then you have to and go through this entire journey of admission, discharge. And we said, यार हमें पूरी journey own करनी है. ये journey own तब अगर हमारे को रात को patient को तकलीफ है और हम डॉक्टर साहब को बोल रहे हैं आप जाइए और बोले यार मैं तो दूसरी surgery में हूँ, तो आप क्या करोगे?
Very interesting. I think
so. We had to make sure the doctors, are part of our own ecosystem. We outsourced the hospital because we said, okay, that's an area where we can work closely. And I think that's still a area we are trying to get even more insights. But the journey, everything, we said, there is no other way we can outsource it. So we said, there is no value in being a marketing company and selling a lead. We want to do the entire thing.
I really love the way you framed it. So build a business on 1 or 2 core insight, and then own the entire journey. If we let's say if we look at similar parallels, so I think Swiggy was built on a core insight. I think we will relate to that. There was a phase when you order food, फोन आता था, रेस्टोरेंट में लीफलेट आते थे न्यूज़पेपर में,
भेज दिया मैंने लड़का
निकल चुका है. बट लड़का कहाँ पहुंचा है
किसी को नहीं पता है.
That very core insight कि स्विगी ने ऐप में दिखा दिया कि लड़का exactly कहाँ है.
That's the reason we failed in Deliveroo.
Exactly, yeah.
That's where Swiggy succeeded.
So there were first wave of food delivery startups जिन्होंने ये नहीं किया था. And Swiggy में that one core insight की यार time.
Predictability.
Yeah, कब आ रहा है. And then of course they went on to own a lot of things, Swiggy One, etc., and so on.
But I think just the predictability of the delivery boy, I still believe that's been there. I think they have not been able to find a better insight, and they probably didn't need to. They've just built on that high quality restaurants and predictability of delivery so massively that it's crazy.
So in your case, that is the surgical skills of the surgeon and the equipment getting used. OT तो assuming कि अगर NABH और एक certain bar के ऊपर है तो meet हो ही जाता है.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And I am guessing that at least even now, hospitals would love you, right? Because even the best of the hospitals, Medanta, Narayana, Fortis, none of them are running at more than 65% occupancy. So asset to ऐसे भी underutilized पड़ा ही हुआ है. So you are in a way actually helping them sweat that unutilized assets, right?
Yeah. So if you actually go and look at statistics, and now we have partnered with almost like 1,000 in our lifetime, and we've stopped some of them because we didn't like the quality of patient care. We ended up realizing that some of the large public hospital companies, they run at 60-70%. The average hospital runs at 20% capacity.
Wow.
So it is built, if you go and understand, it is built by either a doctor who did really well, or either by an entrepreneur who was guided by somebody कि यार अस्पताल की लैंड मिल रही है सस्ते में बन जाएगी तुम अस्पताल ना लो रेस्टोरेंट मत बनाओ. ये दो ही तरह के ओनर्स हैं. एंड जो डॉक्टर्स जो बिल्ड करते हैं वो नॉर्मली ईदर देयर इज अ हस्बैंड वाइफ डुओ. तो एक मोस्ट कॉमन इज अ पीडियाट्रिशियन एंड अ गायनेकोलॉजिस्ट, क्योंकि हिंदुस्तान में जनता तो बहुत है तो डिलीवरी तो होनी ही है. So a lot of people will come in. So so you start building couple of OTs, 30-40 beds or 25-30 beds, and because they come from healthcare, so they understand the nuances very, very well. So they're able to staff the people. They struggle at staffing, something I think Emversity is solving massively. In fact, there's one of the biggest challenges which we face, and maybe at some point we should find a way to work together, is we train hospital staff, our partner hospitals. We have till date trained 10,000 nurses and GDAs on technical and behavioral skills, क्योंकि हमारे पेशेंट को इम्पैक्ट करता है वो.
अच्छा.
लेकिन अट्रिशन इतना ज़्यादा है कि every few months some people leave.
Wow.
So, and of course, some of the cities like Kerala dominate there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think Emversity probably will do a great job. And I'm sure you like the way I made that plug.
Product placement.
You didn't ask me to be fair. But I generally feel that's a huge problem area to be solved. And kudos to you guys to taking it's a massive challenge. Again, I think such a foundational problem of building a country, any skill. Right, so we train the nurses ourselves, and that's an area which we keep seeing as an area to improve. But coming back to the hospitals, so they're 20% utilized, right? And when we go to a hospital, we just don't bring a doctor and a patient. We bring a lot of SOPs, because we're going to take surgeries, we're going to take advanced equipments, we're going to take patients, we're going to bring nursing care, we're going to bring prescription making, we're going to give them white label products, softwares inside the hospital. We are now working on our own HIS, which we'll give it to them because they don't have a good quality one. It's very archaic, which they've been using it. And we've been able to standardize some of these things.
So Harsh, let's come to the technology part in healthcare. Now, there's a lot of discussion about how AI is going to shape every other sector, not just healthcare, but even healthcare is not any different. There's a lot of discussion about the massive potential that AI can have in improving patients' outcome, improving healthcare delivery. How much of it is actually froth, and how much action do you see happening today on the ground? Froth as in, of course, the technology may have a lot of potential, but are we 10 years, let's say, early, or do you actually see something happening on the ground? Do you see game-changing innovation happening in the way you deliver, let's say, outcomes to patients? It would be interesting to hear some of your insights.
So, I think huge believer in technology advancement, just on a very macro level. And AI is so foundational that it will just end up, impacting our lives in ways we today don't think, right? I come from agricultural land, Punjab, and I was surprised in my last visit. I saw a John Deere robot in one of the fields doing precision spray, irrigation spraying in a field in Punjab.
Wow.
I mean, must be a very progressive farmer and probably a wealthier one to afford it, or might have had a Canadian connection to have brought it. But that's happening, to the level that today I think, I've started taking notes. I don't write notes anymore. I'll do a, your WhatsApp के अंदर ही meta ने डाल दिया. So you say, okay, can you convert my speech to text? And I'll just say all my thoughts and just ask them to organize it, and they'll give me a beautiful note summary which I can forward it to my teams. It's that foundational for me. I think in healthcare, just like any other industry, we are discovering ways it will be used. Will it be disruptive? Will it change courses? I think 100%. It's just going to happen. But healthcare being regulated, I think we should be careful how we adopt it. But not adopting it is going to be the same as somebody saying not adopting internet. एक और चीज़ मैं आपको बोलता हूँ, बहुत सारे लोग ना हेल्थ केयर के बारे में एक चीज़ रियलाइज नहीं करते. Doctors are, you have to understand how healthcare works, right? As maybe engineers and as technical folks, we are taught to be innovative. We are taught to think outside the box. Doctors are taught to be conservative.
Follow protocols.
For the protocols.
Yeah.
Say, and doctors say, okay, पता है ये nerve यहाँ है तो ये nerve यहाँ है. यहाँ पे इतना suture करना है तो इतना करना है. आपको इतना ही एनेस्थीसिया इतने ml देना है तो इतना ही ml देना है. You can't say यार मैं try कर लेता हूँ ज़्यादा देने की. You can't do that, right? So it's precision. But I think the other side of doctors, which most people don't realize, and we see it daily, is they are very, very, very open. They are very open to try out or learn newer forms of medical treatments. So let's say, few years ago when you were supposedly getting a hernia done or a gallstone, which is such a common surgery, there used to be a huge wound on the body, right? अब वो कैमरा डालते हैं, right? This is called laparoscopic surgery. वो पहले तीन जगह डालते थे आपके बॉडी में, 1, 2, 3, फिर 2 पोर्ट हो गया कि यार 2 ही डालें. अब सिंगल पोर्ट आ गया कि आपके बॉडी में एक ही डालेंगे होल. Right? So doctors, while are super conservative, they are very open-minded in something which improves patient outcome. Because you have to understand, as a doctor, you are almost responsible for a patient's life for that period inside the OT and even after that. Right? So if they can find anything which improves the chances of a better patient outcome, they are actually very open. And I think that inside a lot of people, we at Pristyn, every surgery we do, right from cataract to a kidney stone removal, every surgery is the most advanced. In fact, there's a huge area where doctors actually want to learn more, but they don't have enough ecosystem to think about. So I think skill development of doctors is a huge area. But I think when we come to AI will start becoming doctor's assistant immensely. Or I think the first area, and we also use it a lot, the first area it's going to start helping is the way a doctor works, right? आप डॉक्टर जब एक पेशेंट डॉक्टर से मिलने जाता है, डॉक्टर उससे सारे सिम्टम्स पूछते हैं. तो टेक्निकली तो अच्छा यार आपको सर दर्द है, अच्छा आपको कल फीवर आया था, अच्छा आपको बॉडी में थोड़ा पेन है, अच्छा आपको लिथार्जी फील हो रही है. एंड द डॉक्टर थिंक्स, अच्छा ये सारे सिम्टम्स मेरे इन पेशेंट्स के थे, उन पेशेंट्स को ये बीमारी थी, उनको मैंने ये दवाई दी थी, उसमें ये असर हुआ था, और मेरे को प्रोटोकॉल में भी समझाया गया था ये सिम्टम लीड्स टू दिस डिजीज एंड उस डिजीज का ट्रीटमेंट है और ये रिकवरी पीरियड होता है. तो डॉक्टर्स एक्चुअली डूइंग न्यूरल नेटवर्क्स ऑल द टाइम. It's that's what they're doing. They're making decision metrics in their head. Now, if they're doing this and if they get technology to do this 10x more better, they will start adopting it. So doctors want to do better care. Doctors want to give patients better disease. They want to diagnose the patients better all the time. And human body is so complex. I think कुछ 150 billion neurons हैं हमारे body में.
Wow.
Sorry, brain में. Body बहुत दूरी बात है, शायद brain में.
You have become a half doctor.
I'll tell you a very interesting story. And when initially Pristyn started, and piles is India में bawasir, right? Very common. And we do the highest pile surgeries in India. Probably in the world क्योंकि सबसे ज़्यादा population यही है. So Vaibhav had gone out to do a surgery, and we had this early morning appointment. A patient came in and he was getting very jittery that doctor is slightly late. Surgery में थोड़ा time लग रहा था, और शायद OT delay हो गया था. So Vaibhav was coming back, he was stuck in a traffic. तो वो आने में उनको time लग रहा था. And I saw the patient getting jittery, he was waiting, and I said, sir, can I help you? You're getting very upset. He says, yeah, I had come to meet the doctor. I said, can I know what's going on? He said, hey, I had this piles treatment. I said, okay, what are the symptoms? He said, I had this bleed going on. I had these swollen swollen balls going outside my anal area. what happens is that we have a lifestyle and we have certain kind of food habits and we end up sitting a lot. So there is these blood vessels which contribute, and then there is these anal cushions, which are near around the anal region. When the blood supply gets erratic, the anal cushions swell up, and if they swell more, they come outside the anus. We call it external hemorrhoids. When they swell inside, we call it internal hemorrhoids. And initially वो कैची मार के या सर्जिकली रिमूव किया जाता था, उसमें बहुत वूंड होता था. लेकिन अब मॉडर्न प्रिसिशन आ गया है, तो हम उसको ब्लड सप्लाई को करेक्ट करते हैं, तो आपकी बॉडी पे कट नहीं होता, आपकी रिकवरी फास्टर होती है. यू कैन रेस्ट फॉर अ फ्यू डेज एंड यू कैन रिज्यूम वर्क फास्टर देन लेट्स से longish, very long, open treatment. So you should go for advanced treatment. 15 minutes, he said, okay, great, this is helpful. And, Webov came in and he met the doctor, met the patient, and he said, अच्छा बताइए आपको क्या तकलीफ है? He said, I met Dr. Harsh. I am okay. He said, dude, I was like, oh, this is not happening. And we had to say, okay, we have to be very, very careful. But you have to learn your trade. I think the point was we had to really learn our disease and what we're doing. And I think focus on medical training became paramount for us starting from that day, and precision around that. But coming back to AI, so doctors diagnose patients, right? And if they can get support, that they are doing correct diagnosis, right? इस patient को जुकाम है, इसकी family history है, इसको sinus की problem है, weather में changes हुए हैं, pollen season आ रहा है, sinuses फूल रहे हैं, इसको ये मैं मेडिसिन दूंगा, और बाय द वे ये मेडिसिन इस तरह की बॉडी टाइप पे इम्पैक्ट करती है, and the outcome will be better. Doctor will be very happy to use it.
So it would be more of a co-pilot जहाँ पे technology
that's a starting area.
Yeah.
Then I'll tell you something where we believe it's going to like completely something you'll be very interested in. हमारी सारी healthcare education, surgical education, precision education, and surgery is the hardest kind. होता कि हमारे MBBS के स्टूडेंट्स होते हैं, डॉक्टर्स MBBS पढ़ते हैं, MD पढ़ते हैं, बहुत सारे हॉस्पिटल्स में वो फिर they do the residency, they do the senior residency. What happens is, the way the ecosystem has been set up, they are sometimes not given exposure on advanced medical equipments. So they don't know how to use, let's say, a laparoscopic surgery for hernia, or a holmium laser for kidney stone removal, or a new silk technology for cataract, or LASIK. They don't know all this, and they end up spending lakhs of rupees to learn it, and the institutions doing it is so limited. Right. But with AI and with with the 3D technology and artificial intelligence and just visual augmented reality, there can be a doctor operating here in Gurgaon, and a new age minted doctor in Jharkhand can get the same experience of body being opened up, the areas being cleaned up, camera going inside, and the way doctors doing the newly minted doctor can actually learn it and get the feel of it real time. और ये आज अगर आप देखो आज ये कैसे होता है, ये आज ना वो लाप्रोस्कोपिक मशीन्स होती हैं जिसमें वो टेस्ट मतलब वो basically play machines हैं. You put your hands and you are almost like trying to build cohesion between your two layers. So this medical training is going to be supremely advanced, and it's not going to be far. I'm telling you, it's happening like right now. We became the first institution in the world to use Apple Vision Pro and do a bariatric weight loss surgery and a knee replacement just a couple of weeks ago. First institution in the world where a doctor, because when you have a laparoscopic, or when you are not making a large incision on the body, you are going inside the body guided by a camera, and it's on your screen. But now imagine it's in your entire room and you are seeing that little part of the human body in a much more detail. It's going to happen. We are already using, we did the 2 procedures like just literally last week. So AI is going to come in, not just doctor aiding the patient diagnosis, it's going to come in AI in medical training for the doctors. It's also going to come in medical training for the the professionals. So example, at Pristyn, we have a lot of these care coordinators who come in, who help the patients because every patient in Pristyn gets a care coordinator, every one of them, like 500 plus. So throughout the journey, this person is going to help you find the doctor, talk to the doctor, understand your background, help you in processing, help you in admission, help you in discharge, help you in post-surgery appointments, this care coordinator. Now this person needs to be trained but informed. And it gets limited. So we are using digital training methodology. It's a complete avatars who are teaching these coordinators real time. We have this content which we developed. We call it Mira.ai, which you're using for training care coordinators.
Oh, okay.
Now think about if you have to skill and train. एक तो आप YouTube पे ऑडियो पढ़ा रहे हैं, लेकिन if you can have real time sessions and you can interact with patients, or rather nursing staff down south from a doctor sitting in the west, and you can do a real time conversation and you can answer the nurse की query on के wound कैसे dressing करते हैं, और अगर cannula लगाने में nerve नहीं मिल रही है तो कैसे handle करते हैं, and if you can actually show it to the nurse who's sitting in Jharkhand in her home, it just advances. So I think the training in healthcare is going to go to next level. And the third where it's going to happen is the precision in surgery is going to only go 10x more. We have been coming from a wound to a spot. It's going to go even further. And so I think very, very excited of what AI will do. And there are many more. I might have outlined just 3 or 4.
Amazing. And Harsh, you are significantly investing in technology development within Pristyn. I think you have a team of more than 100 folks working on various technological stacks. Have you seen these investments resulting into tangible, measurable outcome like bringing in operational efficiency or improving patient outcomes? Can you talk about some of such?
और मतलब I think again maybe because of the background and nature of work in the past, fundamental belief है technology में. So right from, and I'll tell you where all places we use. First of all, all these care coordinators who join us, we use an AI built model to train them. So it's a completely AI built training method. So they train them. Second, we have built a huge layer of patient management. Like we said, we talk to 30,000 odd patients a day by like 500 plus people. So whenever they talk to those patients, their conversations, their interaction, the information, everything gets recorded. And you use those distribution funnels to divide those patients into right set of people based on geography, based on speciality, based on skill, based on availability, based on region of where the doctor is or where the patient comes from. So that's the path. Then we use a huge power of technology in the entire doctor ecosystem. So doctors schedule, every doctor sees his or her schedule on their own app. Then they do the entire EMR. One of the biggest things for us was we said every patient, every prescription should be digitized. Even if it is written on a paper, it has to be digitized. Right? And what it does is it makes the doctors extremely conscious. They makes them more careful. They makes them more available because they are going to have a digital signature that this is their prescription. They can never go away from it. Right? So the entire EMR is in-house built and everything is solved. Then we did the entire, hospital mapping with technology. So let me give you an example. A patient who's a 60-year-old undergoing a knee replacement with, let's say, a cardiac disease might need a different hospital than a patient who's 30-year-old, absolutely fit, undergoing a circumcision. Now, when we are blocking their hospitals, then the patient has to, or the coordinator who's just fixing the hospital in the system, he has to make these choices. They all happen automatically. Otherwise, he can't say, okay, in Delhi, I have 20 hospitals and let me choose from where it comes. So technology doesn't allow him to choose a hospital where the patient's safety is compromised, or patient safety for that patient, for that disease is not up to the mark. It is as simple as saying for a knee replacement, you need a different kind of an operation theater, and this hospital might not have it. Sure. So you cannot fix the surgery there or can't block the surgery there. Then there is a lot of modules around patient safety. That means all the EMRs are in the system. Our system already reads that, these are the systems recorded by the doctor. This is the patient's background. This is the treatment the doctor has suggested. Does it match our background or not? And whenever there is a red flag, so we have a huge medical directorate who looks into, these compliances and keeps making those mix and match changes that, okay, if the doctor has made an exception, is there a real reason? There's not a real reason. Then there is an entire, insurance play. Like I said, when you submit your insurance document to a system, within 30 minutes, 30 seconds, we will tell you your insurance covers this amount, this disease by this one hospital. Very interestingly, you might have the same insurance card, same company's insurance policy, but it might be corporate. That means maybe your employer gave you are working somewhere, or you bought it retail. Your policy is same company, both in retail, but you bought a different policy. you are in the same hospital, or you are two people, everything policy is same, different hospital, different insurance coverage. Same policy, same company, same hospital, different disease, different coverage. So there is so many permutation combinations.
Wow.
There are 30 plus insurance companies. There are 150 plus elective surgeries which we do, and there is all like 1,000 plus hospitals. So multiply all this, that's the number of permutation combinations
Wow.
we run on daily basis. So technology makes us seamless of pre-auth and patient this claim processing. Then there is an entire medical documentation, from operation theater, OT notes to discharge summaries to post authorization claim processing, which all happens through technology. Then there is patient information flow. Before a patient gets to the hospital, all the KYC documents, all the payment processing, all the patient prescription go to the hospital so that the admission can happen in under 30 minutes. Then the same process happens in discharge. Then the entire patient history is there with the patient experience team, so that when the patient gets home, they can reach out to the patient first week, second week, third week, sixth week, then eighth week, finally to say the patient is doing okay. Or if a patient raises some complaint, then the entire patient journey is with the doctor. When did he come? Which hospital was he operated? What kind of treatment I gave him, what is his OT notes, what is his discharge summary. So the doctor can look at the entire background.
And all this is built in house.
Everything is built in
Wow.
house. So everything is built in house, and then there is maybe I've missed a few, but then there is the ground team, right? The ground team which onboards hospitals or partners with the hospitals. So they have a huge digital checklist of saying, okay, this hospital on this road, this is the accessibility, these are the beds, this is the operation theater, it's an ABH, these are the licenses. All happens through compliance. And then of course, as you've been a part of large technology companies, when we have so much data being generated, we have a massive BI layer. We have massive dashboards. Everybody has I have this. I had one of our ex-Pristyn colleagues who has joined a large institution today, and he said, "I get this OPD sheet of a patient and then an IPD sheet of a patient, and I have to manually cross-check जो patient मेरे साथ surgery कराने आए थे, ये OPD कब कराने आए थे, और उनको डॉक्टर ने क्या बोला था, और उनकी प्रिस्क्रिप्शन क्या है. I can't match it in my system. That little simplistic thing, which for us should be like, oh, this is very simple. But healthcare, I think some of these things we've been able to do it fairly well. So technology is it's a core of our existence.
Amazing. And Harsh, let's come to the funding aspect. You are one of the very few companies, actually one of the very few unicorns, and within health tech, I'm not sure, is there another unicorn in India?
Yeah, probably in healthcare surgery, no.
Okay. So when you raise venture capital, it also comes with a let's say with a timeline within which you have to give an exit to your investors.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at these legacy organizations which have been built, they took 2 or 3 decades. They were built one brick at a time. As you go and try to expedite that process, and one has to maintain that equilibrium. But what happens is that if you try to push the pedal too hard, healthcare is a segment, especially for folks like you and me, where we are actually doing the actual delivery and not aggregating.
Yeah.
There is always a risk of things starts breaking up.
Of course.
In my case, it is still somebody's education getting screwed up, but in your case, it is
somebody's
patient's
life at stake.
Yeah.
100%.
What kind of let's say mental pressure or responsibility that brings on your head on a day-to-day basis?
So I think partly we've been lucky, and we've been very careful. So I remember when we were raising our first round of capital, we were lucky to get almost 4 to 5 term sheets, and with 10 additional phone calls. As you realize, once you get one term sheet, everybody follows in, right?
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to have 3 to 4 term sheets and so many follow-ups. I think one conversation we had with everyone before even we signed the term sheet was that they try to understand our business extremely well. And Peak 15, which is erstwhile Sequoia, now Peak 15, and Ashish, who sits on our board, has actually both his parents who are doctors.
Oh, okay.
One is a general surgeon and the other one is a gynecologist, and they run a hospital of their own in Faridabad. So when he came and interacted with us, one of the reasons we went with Peak 15 was that the person from Peak 15, Ashish in this case, who was going to be our partner in the journey, had lived through healthcare all his life. So he gave us, a lot of comfort from day one in saying that, build patiently, build it well, but build an institution, use the good things of speed and execution you have seen from your urban company or your the startup ecosystem. So I think we had that comfort from day one, but we were also very, very careful. But I think as we started building, we also kept in our head that I remember the time when we listed what could go wrong. And for us, going wrong means patient's life getting compromised. And we said, okay, if this happens, what could go wrong in leading to this final step? The doctor, the hospital, the operation, the equipment. Okay, what could go wrong? Doctor selection. Okay, what could go wrong? Hiring of the doctor. What could go wrong? Documentation and background. And I think so we followed this framework of saying doctor, hospital, operation theater is like the core of our existence, and whatever in the world we can lose some money in marketing. We can hire a bad HR person or somebody
you
wrong.
can correct it. Yeah,
We can correct all that, but we cannot not hire a doctor who's not up to the mark.
Yeah,
We cannot choose a hospital. So let's be slow in that. We can have a lot of pace in everything else, but let's be slow in hiring a doctor. Let's be slow in choosing the hospital, and let's be sure that every medical equipment we use and the process we follow in terms of patient protocol is not getting compromised.
Sure.
So that's the first thought for us. Okay, these three things can. Then we said, what can we do around it? So we said, okay, we'll build a medical directorate, which is, so our medical director is led by Dr. Shalu, who spent she spent last 30 years. She's a trained physician, and then she went for a management education and has been in healthcare for almost 30 years. Massive experience. So understands healthcare and understands administration. Then we build a doctor hiring protocol of how we interview, how we check, how we do background and stuff. And every doctor who comes to Pristyn is met by one of my co-founders who are surgeons themselves. Even before we started Pristyn, we had done 20,000 surgeries. They had done 20,000 surgeries amongst themselves.
Okay.
So there's a massive expertise on the founding table, and we use that extremely well. So we said, okay, doctor hiring process hard. Then we said hospital onboarding. So we hired NABH experts, and then we had the typical onboarding team who would scout the hospitals, gather all the information. We put some filters on saying NABH, okay, check. These infrastructures, check. Medical equipment, check. Modular OT, check. RMO staff, check. Then we put some NABH experts on it who have nothing on their mind except, is this hospital up to the mark or not?
So they are not bound by revenue or growth considerations.
They don't even know the revenue.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem with, as you would realize, with our field teams is they keep bringing the hospital and they keep rejecting it.
Yeah.
So we followed a very, very strong protocol on hospital onboarding. And then when we had to choose medical equipments or medical diagnostics, we again put our healthcare expertise from the medical director to the founders to entire ecosystem which we built, that every equipment is tested in Gurgaon. Every equipment is first done a few surgeries. We go to check the background, so that every equipment which we use in advanced technologies of the highest order. So we put a team of procurement there, background by rev check. Then we started building technology there, where we said, okay, a 60-year-old patient, orthopedics, like the example I gave, heart surgery can be admitted in only these kind of hospitals. So the system bans it. So they cannot be admitted in different hospitals. A laparoscopic surgery patient cannot be admitted 11 o'clock. He has to be admitted 8 p.m. previous night for the surgery to happen next day, because it's a slightly critical surgery. Every patient who gets admitted, his protocols, vitals need to be in the system, so that the system red flags if a human being misses. So we followed all these iterative process throughout the journey and kept building on it day in, day out, so that to ensure these three real pillars actually don't move. Like you said, we can make any mistake. हम पैसा collection loss कर सकते हैं, marketing loss कर सकते हैं, ये नहीं कर सकते. So I think we've put a lot of precision on it, made few mistakes, but I think we've been maybe lucky.
Amazing. So now let's come to the new initiative. Tell us about BeatXP.
BeatXP.
Tell us when it is becoming a unicorn within a unicorn.
BeatXP actually has been surprisingly a very serendipitous journey. I don't think we ever wrote the business plan to start a D2C brand in it. What happens was, we are hustling entrepreneurs, and we started literally in early 2019. And 2020 March, nation announced a lockdown, and we were a young company. We were, I think, 150 folks, another 70, 80 to join. and suddenly hospitals got shut down, doctors couldn't get out, patients were of course not moving out, and clearly like our business nosedived 80%. And we said we will not survive if we don't, like, we had to do something. Luckily we were in the national capital region, in terms of headquarters, and we had a lot of manufacturing facilities around us. So we said a lot of people need sanitizers and masks. Flipkart, Amazon is shut down, and we have a lot of factories in Panipat and Sonipat and Rewari who are Anagra and Meerut who are producing all these things. Can we sell them and make some money? So when Amazon and Flipkart were shut down, we were working on the roads doing sanitizers and masks. Right through the wave of COVID, there has not been a single day when I was at home. Throughout the wave of COVID, I was in office like 6 days a week.
Wow.
Throughout. और पुलिस के डंडे भी खाए हैं, रोज़ पुलिस ऑफिस भी आती थी, और हमारा ऑफिस भी ऑफिस रीजन में था, तो वहाँ पे पुलिस आती थी कि आप ऑफिस खोल कैसे बैठे हो, फिर उनको समझाना पड़ता था हम हेल्थ केयर है, एंड दे वर सुपर अकोमोडेटिंग बिकॉज दे सॉ व्हाट वी वर डूइंग, देन दे बिकेम सपोर्टिव, देन पुलिस हेल्प्ड अस गो थ्रू एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूट स्टफ बिकॉज पीपल नीडेड इट. बट हमने सैनिटाइजर मास्क बेचे, फिर कोविड खत्म हो गया पहली वेव, और अमेजोन फ्लिपकार्ट खुल गए और नुक्कड़ पे सब जगह मिलने लग गया, तो बिजनेस बंद हो गया. हमने सर्जरी करना शुरू कर दिया. वेव 2 आ गई, अब सैनिटाइजर मास्क की सप्लाई चेन बन गई थी, ऑक्सीमीटर्स चाहिए थे सबको, तो हमने ऑक्सीमीटर्स बेचने शुरू कर दिए. फिर हमने वहाँ से वैसा बनाया. फिर वेव 2 खत्म हो गई और एक मिनी थर्ड वेव आई जब सबको पीपी किट्स और ये सब चाहिए थे, फिर हमने वो बनाने शुरू कर दिए. बाय सितंबर ऑफ 21 वी रियलाइज्ड कि यार हमने पूरा ही कॉमर्स कर लिया. हमने प्रोक्योरमेंट भी कर लिया, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग भी कर ली, डिलीवरी भी कर ली, लास्ट माइल भी कर लिया, रिवर्स लॉजिस्टिक्स भी कर ली, थोड़ी मार्केट प्लेस भी कर लिया, सब कुछ करके देख लिया. तो हमने सब कुछ बना लिया है और 10-20 लोगों की टीम फुल टाइम यही कर रही है. तो वाई डोंट वी स्टार्ट समथिंग ऑन इट्स ओन? So I think we ended up starting BeatXP in September of 21 or late September 21, and we did like 400 crores of revenue in our second year.
Wow.
And it has scaled.
That would be almost similar to Pristyn, right? Or a good.
It's similar to Pristyn, of course, but the business is very different. The value creation is very, very different. I think before we even realized, we said, okay, this business has scaled. Have we even thought about what it really stands for? And I think we had to literally go back and redo its brand book. And we are in the process of redefining what BeatXP means for us. And we are really, really focused on now fitness. As a brand proposition, we really, really want to go deep in fitness and products and methodology. For example, we do massagers, we had to really focus on saying if we are doing, like a massager, which is relaxation for your body, it's not necessarily for athletes who are going to the gym. It is also for you and me who might have had 12 hours work and you're coming back and you need a back massage. So I think the focus on fitness has come out as a thesis for us, and we are very driven to do that.
So you're staying very close to health and fitness and not venturing into the territory of, let's say, a boat or regular electronics.
So I think, it started, right? We were doing oximeters and then we were doing BP monitors through COVID. तो हमें लगा कि हमें तो वही करना आता है. तो हम जिस फैक्ट्री से बीपी मॉनिटर की कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मैन्युफैक्चरर बनाते थे, उनके पास बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट्स थे. हमने उनके साथ बैठ के समझा आप क्या करते हो. हमें लगा ये बहुत ज़रूरी है. फिर हमने आके उनकी डिज़ाइनिंग करी, खुद से डिज़ाइन किया, खुद से समझा, पूरा सप्लाई चेन जाके जब खोला, डिफरेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर से मिले. वी इंट्रोड्यूस आवर मसाजर्स in the country. Like we sell a massager for roughly $2,500, right? It is so high quality. We met, we were doing some shoot with, Hrithik Roshan's assistant. And we said, hey, this is a massager for us. And she says, I use this. And I've gifted it to, including Shah Rukh Khan, I've gifted it to like 10 people.
Wow.
Right? So it was the quality of product which we had never really promoted, which we said, okay, the finesse is there. So I think our focus on, we might have an overlap with one or two products, but I think we are full stack fitness as a player. And I think that's where we're going to go deeper in.
Amazing. What I really liked about the inception story of BeatXP is that some of the best ideas, or I would say that hallmark of a great entrepreneur is that they come up with some of the best ideas when their back is against the wall.
Yeah.
So when the whole elective surgery, it was literally shut down, right?
Yeah, 80% down. Only we were doing like, I think, so little surgeries a month, and only very emergency, semi-emergency cases. Somebody has a kidney stone. It is an urethra. Like that patient is dying with pain. You have to give him or her a relief. Somebody has bleeding in their anus region, you have to solve it, otherwise their HP will go down. So I think very few surgeries would have happened.
And that's when you came up with
That's when we had to survive.
Amazing. This was very, very interesting discussion, Harsh, and I am quite sure that you would have inspired a lot of people watching and listening to us to build in India, to build in healthcare. Before we conclude, what would be your one advice to budding entrepreneurs who are planning to build, especially building in healthcare?
No, I think we are still budding entrepreneurs ourselves, so very young in our journeys, and like we said, we have to build for 20 years to
Yeah, I
build
was
this.
asking for advice for myself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, then I think we should do a session where I take notes. You are lucky that you had a pad and you took some notes. I missed everything you said. No, but Vivek, I think as you would appreciate, for me, foundational things are extremely critical, and we are at the juncture of our journey. If you look at like top 10 20 companies by market cap on Indian stock exchange, they're all service companies. But if you look at top 10 companies, 15 companies on the Nasdaq or in New York Stock Exchange or Chinese Stock Exchange, they're product companies.
Yeah.
And I think India needs to bring innovation. You'll be surprised, we are third largest in the world in writing research papers, but the problem is we are ninth in terms of citations. So I think we have to really do R&D which is valuable. We have to, as VC ecosystem, and that's a request to every VC out there, including ours, we have to support people who really do innovation in products, even in services, but who go after innovation. They have to allow them to fail, allow them to build, allow them to iterate. Because in the next 20 years, देखो दो सुपर पावर्स हैं, एक यूएस है, एक चाइना है. अब यूएस ने तो सारा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग आउटसोर्स कर दिया चाइना को, और चाइना मैन्युफैक्चरिंग से सुपर पावर बन गया है. Any foundational industry which is going to be built in, and today AI is that, sustainability is that. और हिंदुस्तान के पास ना एक प्रॉब्लम है. हमारी प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि हम लोग 150 करोड़ लोग हैं, लेकिन हमारे पास जगह बहुत कम है. So unlike a China, while manufacturing has to grow, but we'll not be able to build the kind of factories they build because our pollution, we are in Gurgaon, it is difficult. So हमारे को तो एक तो बहुत सारी सड़कें बनानी है, ताकि जितनी हम सड़कें बनाएंगे उतने शहर डेवलप करेंगे, और हमारे सब लोगों को छोटे छोटे शहरों को डेवलप करना है. सड़कें बनाते जाओ, बस सड़कें बनाते जाओ. सड़कें बनेंगी, ट्रांसपोर्ट बढ़ेगी, लोग ट्रैवल करेंगे, फैक्ट्री लगा पाएंगे, जगह लगा पाएंगे, और लोग जाएंगे, कंज्यूमर बढ़ेगा, कंज्यूमर खाएगा ज़्यादा, और सामान जाएगा तो और फैक्ट्री बड़ी होगी, और कंपनी बड़ी होगी, एंड साइकिल रोटेट्स. तो हमें बहुत सारी सड़कें बनानी है, हमें प्रोडक्ट इनोवेशन करना है, और हमें ना विमेन को वर्कफोर्स में लाना है. I think something, we are so lucky around us. There are so educated women. But if you actually go look at statistics, इंडिया में 70% मेल काम करते हैं, लेकिन सिर्फ 20% फीमेल्स काम करती हैं. जर्मनी में 84% females and about 70% males. China is 70% females and about 67% males. तो females are working more. हमारे देश में 20% females in the workforce. तो 20% को हमें, लेकिन the good news is 60-70% से upwards are educated. Basic education सरकार ने बहुत अच्छा काम किया. So we need to bring women in workforce. We have to get taxes higher. Maybe not higher, but maybe more number of people. Only 3% people pay taxes in India. 6% I think file, and only 3% pay. That number in a Western country is upwards of 40%. So we need to increase taxes. We have to take black money out of property. सारा पैसा वहाँ जाता है. Public market को बढ़ाते हैं. Public market बढ़ेगी. More startups will get capital. More people will innovate because there's an exit strategy, and we as a country will start doing well. So I think थोड़ी ज़्यादा लंबी एडवाइस हो गई है. But any building entrepreneur, be foundational. Please innovate on product and services. Do full stack, and don't just do a startup by seeing your colleague in your college or in your office raising $2 or $3 million. Money एक बार दो बार आ जाता है, पर धंधा build करने में literally you have to sleep on the office table and sacrifice family life.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
So please make commitment.
Thank you for that great insight, Harsh, and thank you for coming here.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure, and good luck to Emversity and the amazing work you're doing, and hopefully we'll find a way to partner together.
Thanks.
Take care.